This story is titled, Caught My Girlfriend on a Secret Vacation with Her Ex, so I froze our joint account and left. Hey everyone! If you're enjoying these stories and want to support the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free, takes only a second, and helps me bring you even more awesome content like this. Now let's start the video. OP starts by saying, I'm a 28-year-old guy, and until a few months ago, I thought I had my life figured out. I had a steady job, a nice apartment, and a girlfriend I thought I'd marry someday. We'd been together for almost 3 years. I wasn't some hopeless romantic or anything, but I'd started picturing the rest of my life with her. You know, the typical stuff, buying a house, maybe having kids one day, growing old together. It felt right, or at least I thought it did. Her name was Cece, and at first everything about her felt perfect. She was smart, funny, and had this energy that just lit up the room. I fell for her hard. And honestly, I thought she fell for me too. Our relationship wasn't without its flaws, of course. No relationship is. But I was committed to making it work. I trusted her completely. Or at least, I used to. Then, a few months ago, things started to change. It wasn't anything obvious at first, just little things. She'd laugh a little too hard at her phone but wouldn't tell me what was so funny. Or she'd take her phone with her everywhere, even to the bathroom, which she'd never done before. I tried not to read too much into it. Everyone gets a little private sometimes, right? But it started happening more and more. Whenever I was nearby, she'd tilt the screen away or lock her phone like she didn't want me to see something. At first, I chalked it up to her being busy or stressed. She had a demanding job, and everyone needs their space. But then there were the trips. Out of nowhere, she started talking about all these work trips and girls' weekends. It felt sudden. She'd never mentioned stuff like that before. I didn't want to seem controlling, so I played it cool, but I couldn't shake this weird feeling in my gut. You ever have that? Like your brain is telling you everything's fine, but your gut knows better? That was me. I brought it up casually one night while we were watching TV. Hey, you've been traveling a lot lately. Everything okay at work? She shrugged without looking away from the screen. Yeah, just busy. Why? I could feel myself overthinking every word. No reason, I said, forcing a laugh. Just seems like you're always on the go lately. She finally looked at me and smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It's no big deal. You worry too much. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was worrying too much. I wanted to trust her. Hell, I did trust her. Or at least I wanted to. But the feeling wouldn't go away. Every time she mentioned another trip or got defensive when I asked for details, that feeling in my gut grew stronger. I started noticing more things too. Like how she'd always put her phone face down on the table. Or how she'd get weirdly jumpy if I walked into the room while she was texting. It was like she didn't want me to know who she was talking to. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. I really did. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was imagining things. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. We had a joint bank account, something we'd opened together when we started saving for a house. It felt like a big step at the time, a sign that we were serious about building a future together. I didn't check it often. Most of our savings came from my paycheck, and I trusted her to manage it responsibly. But one day, I decided to take a look, and there it was. $3,000 gone in a single withdrawal. No heads up, no explanation. Just gone. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. It didn't make sense. We'd talked about every big purchase before. That was our rule. If either of us wanted to spend more than $500, we'd talk about it first. It wasn't about control. It was about being on the same page. So why hadn't she said anything about this? I told myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe it was an emergency. Maybe she'd forgotten to tell me. I tried to stay calm, to not jump to conclusions. That night, I brought it up as casually as I could. Hey babe, I said while we were eating dinner. What's up with the $3,000 withdrawal? Did you buy something big? She didn't even look up from her phone. Oh yeah, I booked a girls' trip with Maria, she said. Like it was the most normal thing in the world. I froze. A girls' trip? She hadn't mentioned anything about a girls' trip. I tried to keep my voice steady. A girls' trip? You didn't tell me about that. She finally looked up, rolling her eyes like I was being ridiculous. I didn't think I needed to give you a play-by-play of my plans. That hit me like a punch to the gut. I wasn't asking for a play-by-play, but $3,000 was a big deal, especially when we were supposed to be saving for a house. It's just, that's a lot of money, I said, trying to sound calm. We're trying to save, remember? She gave me this look, like I was the one being unreasonable. Relax, she said. We'll make it back. It's not the end of the world. Her dismissive tone pissed me off, but I bit my tongue. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she just needed a break, and I was making it into a bigger deal than it was. But that night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That's when the doubt turned into action. For the first time in our entire relationship, I decided to do something I'd never done before. I went through her phone. I didn't make the decision lightly to go through her phone. Honestly, it felt like a betrayal in itself. We'd always had this unspoken rule: no snooping. I've seen friends ruin relationships over stuff like that. Paranoia, jealousy, all the toxic behavior that spirals out of control. But lying there in bed, staring at the dark ceiling, I couldn't ignore the knot in my stomach anymore. Something was wrong, and I needed to know the truth. Her phone was on the nightstand, just sitting there like a ticking time bomb. I kept telling myself not to do it, that it was crossing a line. But every time I thought about that $3,000 and her dismissive attitude, my anger bubbled up. She'd acted like it was no big deal, but it was a big deal. We had plans, saving for a house, building a life together, and she just tossed that out the window like it didn't matter. I grabbed her phone, hands shaking a little, and unlocked it. She'd never changed her passcode, probably because she never thought I'd check. My chest felt tight as I scrolled through her apps, trying to figure out where to start. Text messages seemed like the obvious choice, but I didn't see anything suspicious right away. Just chats with friends, co-workers, family. For a split second, I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe there really was nothing going on. Then, I saw the emails. At first glance, they looked normal. Confirmation emails from airlines and a hotel booking site. But as I opened one after another, the pieces started to fall into place. There were flight details, hotel reservations, and even a rental car, all under her name. But the kicker, none of it matched the timeline she'd given me for her girls' trip. In fact, there was no mention of her friend Maria anywhere in these emails. My heart pounded as I opened her messaging app. I scrolled past the usual chats until I found a name I didn't recognize. Nick. I clicked on it, and that's when my stomach dropped. It wasn't just casual conversation. It was full-on planning for a romantic getaway. They'd been talking for weeks, coordinating flights and schedules, making jokes about how worth it the trip would be. This wasn't just some fling or innocent hangout. This was premeditated. She'd lied to me, looked me in the eye, and acted like everything was fine while secretly planning a vacation with her ex. I couldn't stop reading. The texts painted a picture of a completely different Cece than the one I thought I knew. She called him Babe and talked about how much she missed him. There were messages about their plans for the trip: sightseeing, fancy dinners, even a couple's massage at the hotel spa. The worst part? She'd used our joint account to pay for most of it. I sat there in shock, scrolling through the messages over and over, hoping I'd somehow misunderstood. But there was no mistaking it. She wasn't going on a girls' trip. She was going on a romantic vacation with her ex-boyfriend, using the money we'd saved together for our future. I don't know how long I sat there staring at her phone. My mind raced with a million thoughts, from anger to heartbreak to sheer disbelief. How could she do this to me? After everything we'd been through, everything we'd planned together, how could she just throw it all away? I could have confronted her right then and there. I could have woken her up and demanded answers. But something stopped me. Part of me wanted to hear her try to explain herself, to see if she'd admit to what she'd done. But another part of me didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing how much she'd hurt me. I wanted her to feel the same shock, the same gut-wrenching betrayal I was feeling in that moment. So I put her phone back on the nightstand, exactly where I found it, and crawled back into bed. I didn't sleep a single minute that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the messages, the emails, the hotel confirmation with both of their names on it. My mind kept replaying every moment of our relationship, looking for signs I'd missed. Had she always been like this? Was I just too blind to see it? The next morning, I acted like nothing was wrong. I watched her pack her suitcase, humming to herself like she didn't have a care in the world. She kissed me goodbye at the door, smiling like she was the perfect girlfriend. "Love you," she said. The words felt hollow now, like a bad joke. "Have fun," I said, forcing a smile. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her I knew everything. But instead, I let her walk out the door, suitcase in hand, heading off to her secret vacation. As soon as she was gone, I sat down at my laptop and logged into our joint bank account. I stared at the balance for a moment, my hands hovering over the keyboard. Then, without hesitation, I froze the account. No more withdrawals, no more spending. If she thought she could use my money to fund her little getaway, she had another thing coming. I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction as I hit the final button to lock the account. It wasn't just about the money, it was about taking back control. She'd made her choices, and now she was going to face the consequences. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not without feeling the same panic and betrayal she'd made me feel. I sat back in my chair, my heart still racing. For the first time in weeks, I felt a tiny sliver of relief. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but one thing was certain. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. After freezing the account, I sat in silence for a long time, staring at the screen. My mind was racing, a mix of anger, sadness, and something else I couldn't quite put into words. I knew she'd figure out what I'd done sooner or later, and I wasn't sure how I'd handle it when the call inevitably came. But right now, I didn't care. She deserved it. Every bit of the panic, frustration, and confusion she was about to feel, it was hers to own. By early afternoon, my phone started buzzing. I didn't even have to look at the screen to know it was her. I let it ring a few times before finally picking up, trying to keep my voice as calm and detached as possible. "What's up?" I said, like nothing was wrong. "What the hell did you do?" she yelled, her voice sharp and panicked. "My card's getting declined everywhere. What's going on with the account?" I leaned back in my chair, a small smirk creeping across my face. "Oh, I froze it," I said casually, as if I were talking about the weather. "Figured it was the least I could do after finding out you're on vacation with your ex." Dead silence. For a moment, all I could hear was her breathing, rapid and uneven. I could imagine her standing there, clutching her phone, scrambling to figure out what to say. Then came the denial. "It's not what you think," she blurted out. Her voice was shaky, desperate. "Cut the crap," I said, my tone icy. "I read the emails, Cece. I saw the texts. You've been planning this for weeks," she stammered, trying to find some excuse, but it was clear she was caught. There was no talking her way out of this one, and I wasn't in the mood to let her try. "Why?" I asked, cutting her off mid-sentence. "Why would you do this? If you wanted to be with him, why didn't you just leave me?" "I didn't want to hurt you," she cried, her voice breaking. For a second, it almost sounded genuine, but I wasn't buying it. I let out a bitter laugh, the sound cold and hollow even to my own ears. "You didn't want to hurt me?" I repeated. "So instead, you lied to me, stole our money, and went on a vacation with your ex? That was your brilliant plan to not hurt me?" She didn't answer right away. I could feel her struggling on the other end of the line, trying to come up with something, anything, that would make this all okay. And then, like a switch flipping, her tone changed. The guilt act was gone, replaced by anger and defensiveness. "You know what?" she snapped. "Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with saving for that stupid house, I wouldn't have needed to do this. You've been so focused on the future, you forgot about me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was actually trying to make this my fault. "What the hell are you talking about?" I shot back. "You couldn't have talked to me, told me how you were feeling? Instead, you sneak around behind my back and spend our money on this?" She let out a long, exasperated sigh, like I was the one being unreasonable. "You just don't get it," she said. "I needed space. I needed time away to think." "With him?" I asked, my voice dripping with disbelief. "You needed space from me, so you went on vacation with your ex? How the hell does that make sense?" "He's just a friend," she snapped, her frustration boiling over. "You're blowing this way out of proportion." "Right," I said, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. "Just a friend. That's why you had to lie about it. That's why you hid it from me." She didn't respond. The silence was deafening, and I could almost hear her brain working, trying to come up with a way to twist this into something that made sense. But I wasn't interested in hearing it. "We're done," I said finally, breaking the silence. "What?" she asked, her voice cracking. "You're breaking up with me? Over this?" I actually laughed, a short, bitter sound that didn't feel like me at all. "Are you seriously acting surprised right now?" I asked. "You lied to me, stole our money, and went on a secret trip with your ex. What did you think was going to happen?" "You can't just leave me stranded here," she yelled, panic creeping into her voice. "How am I supposed to get home?" "Not my problem," I said coldly. "You made your choices. Now deal with the consequences." I hung up before she could say another word, my hands shaking as I set the phone down. The anger and adrenaline were still pumping through me, but underneath it all, there was something else. A dull, aching sadness. As much as I wanted to feel nothing for her, the truth was, I'd loved her. Or at least I thought I had. And now it was all gone. Just like that. The hours that followed were a blur. I couldn't sit still. Couldn't stop thinking about everything that had just happened. Part of me felt guilty for freezing the account. But every time I thought about those texts, that guilt disappeared. She'd lied to me, betrayed me in the worst way, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. By the end of the day, I started taking steps to cut her out of my life completely. The first step was moving out of the apartment. I didn't want to be there any longer than I had to, surrounded by memories of a life that clearly meant nothing to her. Packing was surreal. Every object I picked up reminded me of her in some way. A mug we bought on a trip, a blanket we shared while binge-watching TV shows. It all felt tainted now, like I couldn't separate the good memories from the betrayal. I rented a storage unit for my stuff and started crashing at a friend's place. I couldn't bring myself to stay in the apartment even one more night. The landlord was understanding when I explained the situation and let me break my part of the lease early. Cece, of course, was still responsible for her half. Not my problem anymore. While I was packing, Cece's texts started coming in. She was furious at first, demanding that I fix the account situation and calling me all sorts of names. Then her tone shifted. She started begging, saying she was sorry and that we could work it out. It was laughable. The sheer audacity of her trying to patch things up after what she'd done was just unreal. I didn't respond to a single message. I'd already blocked her on most platforms, but I left her number unblocked for a couple of days, just out of morbid curiosity to see what she'd try next. It didn't take long for her to start guilt-tripping me. "You're overreacting," one text read. "I just needed a break to clear my head. It wasn't a big deal." Not a big deal? She blew $3,000 of our savings, lied to my face, and went on a romantic getaway with her ex. How was that not a big deal? Another message came through shortly after. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I love you, and I want us to move past this." Move past this? I couldn't believe what I was reading. The more she texted, the angrier I got. Finally, I blocked her number too. I didn't need to see any more of her twisted attempts to rewrite the situation. A couple of days later, mutual friends started reaching out. Apparently, Cece had wasted no time spreading her version of the story. According to her, I was some heartless monster who abandoned her in the middle of nowhere and left her penniless. She conveniently left out the part where she lied, cheated, and used our joint account to fund her little vacation. The first time I heard about it, I actually laughed. It was so typical of her to play the victim. She'd always been good at manipulating people, twisting situations to make herself look innocent. But this time, I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I started telling my side of the story to anyone who would listen. I didn't hold back. I showed them the texts, the emails, even screenshots of the bank account transactions. Most people were shocked. A few said they'd always thought something was off about her, that she had a way of making everything about her. Others, though, still sided with her. They believed her sob story about being abandoned and thought I was in the wrong for freezing the account. At first, that bothered me. I wanted everyone to see her for who she really was. But eventually, I realized it didn't matter. I wasn't going to waste any more energy on her or her drama. The people who mattered believed me, and that was enough. One of the hardest parts was dealing with the practical fallout. Freezing the account was satisfying in the moment, but it also meant untangling all the shared finances we'd built up over 3 years. We'd been saving for a house, and while most of the money in the account was mine, some of it was hers. Legally, she was entitled to her share, but I wasn't in a rush to sort it out. She sent me a long, angry email about it a week later. "You can't just keep all the money for yourself," she wrote. "We saved that together, and I deserve my half." I didn't even bother replying. I'd already contacted my bank and explained the situation. They told me they couldn't release any funds without both account holders' signatures, which meant Cece couldn't touch a dime unless I agreed to it. I wasn't about to make it easy for her. Let her sweat it out. She'd already burned through most of her own money on the trip, and from what I'd heard, the flights and hotel were non-refundable. She'd screwed herself over, and I wasn't going to lift a finger to help. As time went on, I started to feel a strange mix of emotions. On one hand, I was furious at her for what she'd done. On the other hand, I was angry at myself for ignoring the red flags. Looking back, there were so many moments when I should have seen it coming. The defensiveness, the secrecy, the way she brushed off my concerns, it was all there. I just didn't want to believe it. I'd loved her, or at least I thought I did. But now I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been in love with an illusion. The person I thought I knew, the person I thought I was building a life with, didn't really exist. She'd been wearing a mask the whole time, and I was too blind, or maybe too hopeful to see it. That realization hurt more than anything else. It wasn't just the betrayal or the money, or even the cheating. It was the loss of trust, the loss of the future I thought we were building together. I'd spent 3 years of my life with someone who didn't value me enough to be honest. And now, I was left to pick up the pieces. Despite everything, I started to feel a strange sense of relief. As much as it hurt, I knew I'd made the right decision. Staying with her would have only destroyed me in the long run. I deserved better. Someone who wouldn't lie, cheat, or manipulate me. And now, for the first time in years, I had the chance to find that. Cece, on the other hand, wasn't doing so great. Word got around that she was couch surfing at a friend's place because she couldn't afford rent. Apparently, her ex didn't stick around after the trip, leaving her high and dry. I'd be lying if I said I felt sorry for her. She made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. Breaking up with Cece was like ripping off a band-aid. Quick, messy, and painful, but ultimately necessary. Once the dust settled, I started focusing on rebuilding my life. The first step was closing every door she could use to come back into it. That meant tying up all the loose ends, finalizing our split finances, blocking her on every possible platform, and making sure I had no reason to interact with her ever again. For weeks after the breakup, I kept hearing about her from mutual friends. Apparently, she wasn't taking the whole getting caught cheating and being left stranded thing very well. Some people told me she was furious, trash-talking me to anyone who would listen. Others said she was playing the victim, crying about how I'd abandoned her and left her penniless. Honestly, I expected nothing less from her. Manipulating people had always been her specialty. At first, I tried to stay out of it. I figured the truth would come out eventually. But when I started hearing rumors that I had stolen her money and left her stranded in a foreign country, I knew I couldn't stay silent. I wasn't going to let her rewrite the narrative and paint herself as the innocent one. So I started sharing my side of the story. I didn't hold back. I showed people the texts, the emails, and the screenshots of the joint account transactions. I explained how she'd lied to me, used our savings to fund her vacation with her ex, and only showed remorse when she realized I wasn't playing along. Most people were shocked. A few admitted they'd always suspected she had a manipulative side, but they'd never seen it in action like this. Of course, there were still a handful of people who believed her version of events. Maybe she just made a mistake, one mutual friend said, clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation. I mean, don't you think freezing the account was a little extreme? Extreme? Maybe. But it wasn't unwarranted. She used my trust, my money, and our shared future as bargaining chips for her little fling. I wasn't going to let her off the hook, and I wasn't going to apologize for protecting myself. If some people couldn't see that, so be it. I wasn't about to waste my energy convincing them. Cece didn't stop at mutual friends, though. A couple of weeks after the breakup, she sent me a long, angry email. The subject line read, "Let's be adults about this." I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the better of me. The email was a masterpiece of gaslighting and self-pity. She accused me of being vindictive for freezing the account, claimed I was ruining her life by sharing the story, and demanded I give her her half of the savings. She even tried to guilt me, saying she never meant to hurt me and just needed some time to think. I stared at the screen for a long time, debating whether to reply. Part of me wanted to unleash everything I'd been holding back. The anger, the hurt, the betrayal. But another part of me knew it wouldn't make a difference. Cece wasn't the type to take responsibility for her actions. She'd twist my words, use them against me, and walk away thinking she'd won. So I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the email to my bank and asked them to add it to the file on the joint account. I wanted a record of her nonsense in case she tried to pull anything legal down the line. Then I deleted the email and blocked her address. Problem solved. As the weeks turned into months, I started to feel lighter. The anger and bitterness that had consumed me after the breakup began to fade, replaced by a strange sense of clarity. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. No more lies, no more secrets, no more walking on eggshells around someone who didn't value me. It was liberating. I threw myself into work, picking up extra projects to keep myself busy. I started hitting the gym more regularly, not just to stay in shape, but to clear my head. I even reconnected with a few old friends I'd lost touch with during my relationship. It was like rediscovering pieces of myself I'd forgotten about. At first, I avoided dating. I wasn't ready to put myself out there again. And honestly, I wasn't sure I trusted my own judgment. After all, I'd spent 3 years with someone who turned out to be a complete stranger. How could I be sure I wouldn't make the same mistake twice? But as time went on, I started to feel more confident. I realized that what happened with Cece wasn't entirely my fault. Yes, I missed some red flags, and yes, I could have handled certain things better. But at the end of the day, her actions were her own. I didn't make her lie, cheat, or steal from me. That was all her. Every now and then, I'd hear updates about her through the grapevine. Apparently, her ex didn't stick around after the trip, leaving her high and dry. She'd been couch surfing at a friend's place because she couldn't afford rent, and word had it that she was struggling to find a new job. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a little satisfaction at her misfortune. Karma, I thought. You get what you give. But as much as I wanted to gloat, I also realized it didn't matter. Cece was no longer a part of my life, and her struggles were no longer my problem. I'd spent enough time and energy on her already. It was time to move on. The biggest lesson I took away from all of this was simple. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. I ignored so many signs because I wanted to believe Cece was better than she was. I told myself she wouldn't lie, that she wouldn't betray me, that she wouldn't throw away everything we'd built together. But I was wrong. People don't change just because you want them to. They change because they want to. And Cece clearly didn't. Looking back, I'm grateful for the experience, as painful as it was. It taught me to trust my instincts, to set boundaries, and to value myself enough to walk away from people who don't. Sure, I lost 3 years of my life to someone who didn't deserve me, but I gained something far more important: self-respect. Now, I'm in a better place. I've moved into a new apartment, made some new friends, and even started dating again. It's not easy to put yourself out there after something like this, but I'm taking it slow. One thing I know for sure is that I'll never settle for less than I deserve again. As for Cece, the last I heard, she was still couch surfing and trying to scrape together enough money to get back on her feet. I don't know if she's learned anything from all of this, but honestly, I don't care. She made her choices, and I made mine. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.